I'm Ellen McCauley at Pray It Off in Syracuse, New York. And now I really am going to start talking about humility. And you might say, well, Ellen, where did you get that idea? And, you know, yes, that passage in the Bible, but before I even got to that, I decided I was never a big rosary sayer. I would say it like on Good Friday, but I really was not like some people that you see, they always are saying the rosary. So a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, Bob? I think I said, you know what? I am going to say the rosary every day for the rest of my life. And the reason I do that is because I felt my mother needed the intercession of the Blessed Virgin because she knew what it was like to lose a child. And so I started saying it, and I mean really saying it. I have the book, I do the mysteries, I follow along. So the third joyful mystery says that one of the gifts that you get is poverty in spirit. So I'm thinking, what does that mean? What does poverty in spirit mean? I really couldn't put my finger on it, poverty in spirit. So I looked it up, did a lot of research. Blessed are the poor in spirit, a self-introspection, and this is from Catholic Online. What did Jesus mean by poor in spirit? He didn't mean material wealth. He didn't mean, you know, people who are poor. The Hebrew equivalent for poor describes a man who is humble, helpless, and having no worldly power or influence to protect him. Being poor, God alone is his hope, and he completely relies on God for his daily living. Why do you think Jesus says, unless you become like children, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven? Because children, do you think they worry about what's on the dinner table? They go out, and the food's there, because a loving parent gives them the food. Do you think they worry when they get in the car? No, the loving parent is driving. Children trust the loving parent, unless, you know, for the most part. We are to humble ourselves, be poor in spirit. And I can ask you this question. You don't have to answer it out loud. Do we completely rely on God for our daily living? And I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't think I do. I don't think I really think about relying everything on him. And I want to humble myself before God. Humility in spirit doesn't mean if someone says, hey, Ellen, that was a good Pray It Off meeting, that I can't say, well, thank you so much. It doesn't mean I have to self-efface myself and say, well, I'm an idiot. I don't know how it was any good, because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. Is that humility in spirit? Am I humbling myself? No. If you deny the gifts that God gives you, he doesn't want that either. I want to read this. It is true that the earthly life offers everyone an irresistible temptation to work hard and amass as much wealth as one can acquire. It gives us an opportunity to gather together all sorts of things for the present and the future, both useful and useless, thus making a home more or less like a storehouse. How many of our homes are a storehouse? This is where the clutter comes. There comes a day when one reconciles with the sad fact that all his possessions and savings on earth are of no value before God, and what is counted only is the life he has spent for others. Susan said, Jesus saw someone who needed help, he helped him. Humility before God is a way of detaching ourselves from the world and attaching ourselves to God, body and soul. We are made up of a body, we are made up of a soul, and so often we don't give our soul any attention at all. We are to surrender like a little child and say, and I don't mean, I'm not going to go to work tomorrow because God will provide. Have you ever heard people do that? They're like, yeah, well, I'm not working right now, but God will provide. Really? Maybe he'll provide a kick in your butt and you get out and get a job. He doesn't want us not to work, but he'll provide the strength, the energy. God helped me get the job I have now, which I'm very suited for, by having people help me get it because he loves me and he loves them. Poor in spirit is nothing but an attitude of a defenseless and weak person, that he cannot save himself, however rich he might be or surrounded by the power of the world, unless the Lord intervenes in his life. And you know, it's funny, Gina and a few other people have watched The War Room, and it's going to go around. Betty's got it this week. And what I loved about that movie is there was a very successful couple. Wife had a high-powered job, the husband had a high-powered job, money, beautiful house. Their life was a piece of crap. They didn't communicate, the child was unhappy. It wasn't until they introduced God into their lives and lived a prayerful life that it all had meaning, and the house wasn't the end-all be-all, the cars weren't the end-all be-all, their relationship was. We need to say, I need God's help. When life becomes, here's another bad word for me, superfluous and luxurious, and things are hoarded up in excess that require more than required for a normal life, it almost becomes offensive to God. If we spend all our time amassing, I know people who are addicted to shopping, that they are at the mall or stores every other day. We might have a different addiction, but we need to put all those things before God and say, how many things do we need? What can we use to help others? So, a lot of it is taking care of our soul and our body. Look at it like food. If there's 20 donuts on a table and you say, well, I had to have one, part of that self-denial is taking care of your body and your soul and praying to God so that he gives you the wherewithal to just say, you know, I really don't want one. Mother Teresa showed voluntary poverty and good works. Now, St. Thomas More was surrounded by a lot of plenitude, but he lived a life of faith. You don't have to be not in a nice house and have a nice car. You just have to put them in its proper place. Poverty of spirit is nothing but seeking the will of God in everything, becoming a destitute in the spiritual realm, a beggar before God. There's nothing wrong with saying, Jesus, I'm really having a hard time with my weight. I hate keeping the food log. I get mad when I have to write stuff down. I resent it. I want to get mad at Ellen, but then she looks at me with those big brown eyes, and she's kind of hard to get mad at. Because then she's like, you're not mad at me, are you? And then I have to say no. So I just am having a hard time. I'm begging you, Jesus. Because I'll tell you something. When I weighed 371 and I do my testimony, I used the beg word. I begged God. I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. I have lost weight and gained weight 1,000,000 times. I'm begging you, Jesus. Pray it off as the result of that. Blessed is he who sells everything that he has and buys the most precious and worth possessing treasure, which is God himself and the grace which flows from Jesus on the cross. And I'm not asking you to sell everything you have, but take a good look at what you have and what you need, especially when it comes to food.